Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, with our main topic this morning in the breakfast show. We are discussing today and we are going to shed light on some information concerning the Red Sea area in Egypt and the Red Sea, the historical importance of this area. Why was it named that name, and the natural resources of that area, the location, the geographical importance of this area, and this area as an a touristic destination in Egypt. To shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to host now Dr. Ismail Kamel, the historian and academy professor. Good morning, Dr. Ismail.
Good morning.
Dr. Ismail, the Red Sea area, especially in Egypt, what is the historical importance of this area and why was it called that name?
Okay, thank you for your invitation. And
You're welcome.
Surely the Red Sea is a very important sea across the history. We talk about a sea that dates back to more than 25 million years ago. That was at that time during what we call the geological periods, very long time ago, when we have the old continent, which was called the Gondwana land.
Yes.
At that time when the Arabian Peninsula, okay, and Africa, they were one land, and there was no Red Sea at that time. There was only the Mediterranean Sea that was at that time, and it was more bigger and was called the Tethyan Sea at that time, and was covering a big part of Egypt. And because lots of movements that is on earth, that was making and created a rift. That was
Yes.
called the African Rift. That's separating the Arabian Peninsula from the African territory, especially from Egypt. So at that time, we started to have the beginning of the Red Sea at that time, nearly 25 millions years ago.
Yes.
So at that time, from that time by time, so the Red Sea, it was a little bit changing its location. It was a little bit expanding and more bigger and more longer, until it came at what we have now. Red Sea, it's nearly about 2,000 kilometers long. That is for the length of the sea, nearly 300 kilometers wide, and nearly about 1,000 meters deep. Okay, surely we have lots of countries that they are on the borders of the sea. Most important, surely Egypt and Saudi Arabia, and some other African countries like Sudan, Eritrea, and Yemen at that time. It's called the Red Sea. We have lots of reasons for that. We have the Latin name of the sea. It is called in the Latin writings as the Erythraean Sea. Erythraean, so Erythraean, it means red in Greek and Latin, okay? See the sea, so it is the Red Sea. So that is a reason for that. Also we have another reason, okay, that is related to the area all around. We have the mountains that they look like as reddish mountains, so we call them as the Red Sea mountains. And also we have the desert of Egypt, which is called the Eastern Desert, was called in Egyptian texts as the Bishret. Bishret in Egyptian writing, it means the red sand or the red area. So it is nearly closer to the sea, so they call it like that. Also, we have another reason for that nomination for the corals. Corals that they are on the depths of the sea, so they are mostly that they are red, so like that. Also, we have lots of names across the time for the Red Sea itself. So it was called, as I said before, the Erythraean Sea. In the biblical text, okay, it was called the Yam Suf. Yam, it means the sea. Suf, it means that of a plant of suf or the plant of papyrus.
Yes.
So also the Sea of Kalzum, it is also the old name of the city of Suez was called as El Kalzum. So that is just an introduction for the Red Sea and its names and lots of things. So across the history we have lots of things that we should say about the Red Sea and its importance.
Yes. Concerning the ancient times, actually, this period in the history, ancient times and the pharaohs, could you elaborate on this?
Sure, because the importance of the Red Sea, I think, started by Egypt. So the ancient Egyptians were the first peoples that they want to explore the sea itself and what is beyond, what is behind the Red Sea. So from the sea they knew that there is an area which is called the Arabian Peninsula. So they know that the Arabs, they lived there, especially also with the relation when the Hagar was the wife of Abraham. So they came from Arabia and also originally from Egypt, and then Prophet Abraham, he married her, so she gave him Ishmael, who lived in Mecca, and okay, at that time, so nearly 19 BC, okay, 1900 BC, so it's very long time, 4,000 years ago. Egyptians, they know that area on the other side. Also, they explore the African coast also by lots of expeditions. The oldest one dates back to the 5th dynasty by a king who was called Sahara, and then also by at that time by a king called Senusert, when he wanted to relate and connect the Red Sea with the Nile by a canal.
Yes, that was the first plan of the Suez Canal.
Yes,
the
that
first,
is the first idea. First idea to connect
Sesostris.
That is to connect between the Red Sea and the Nile, and then to the Mediterranean Sea, because they have some fears that if they would like to
the levels are not the same.
So they were afraid, okay, at that time if there is difference of the levels, it will make a catastrophe. So they made the connection by indirect way, by the canal. First of all was called the Canal of Sesostris, that is according to a name of King Senusert, one of the 12th dynasty, nearly 2000 BC, and then called the Canal of Ramses II, also the Canal of Seti I, the Canal of Nikau, the Canal of Darius at that time.
But the most famous was the Canal of the Sesostris.
That
was named like this.
No, but also
the oldest
during the Islamic times, it was called as the Gulf of Caliph.
Yes.
Okay, or the Canal of the Caliph. This according to the time, as we know that Amr ibn al-As and the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, during the year of Ramadan, when it was a time of starvation on the Arabian area and so on.
So the historical importance also, we'd like to shed light on the religious importance. And the prophets who crossed the...
we have lots of great things for the Red Sea. Red Sea, it is mentioned in all the celestial books, on the holy books. Especially it is related to the story of the Exodus, okay? For Prophet Moses was the Israelites, when they get out of Egypt, so they should cross, but not the Red Sea itself. Because if they cross the Red Sea to go to the other side, so they will go to Mecca. But they cross even the Gulf of Suez or a Peter Lake, closer to the Suez Canal at that time. So they went to Sinai after that by the miracle that God made for Moses and the people in order to go there. So after crossing the sea, 50 days after that, they went to the Mount of Moses, also closer to the Red Sea, and then Moses, he had the meeting with God, and he mounted, or he went up to the mountain, and then he received the revelation of God, the Torah. So closer to the Red Sea, we have the first area of revelation of God. And also on this area, God appeared on the earth for the first time in history, as we know that, and it is mentioned on the Bible, it's mentioned in Quran. Also, all the prophets, that they come to Egypt, okay, so they should cross the Red Sea or closer to the Red Sea by the land of Sinai, which is called the Holy Land. So Red Sea is very, very important sea by the religious importance and also economically and strategically by the time.
What about the geographical and the strategic location of the Red Sea?
Red Sea, it's considered to be the heart of the world, okay? So it is connecting between most of the continents, okay? So it's separating Africa from Asia, okay? And also it is connecting between, from the south by the Indian Sea, okay? And the rest behind Indian Sea till the Mediterranean Sea, and then to go to Europe. So it is a heart of the world and connecting between the Occident and the Orient. So for that reason, it has a very important economic and also commercial importance, because you know that China and India and these East African countries, they were very famous by their commerce and their trading and so on. So in order to come they should cross the Red Sea. So during that time, because Egypt was a very strong country from the Pharaonic time until the Islamic time, so Egypt was controlling the Red Sea and the commerce by the Red Sea. Okay, yes. So it was very important to connect, and so for that reason, there was the necessity to connect between Red Sea and the Mediterranean. So as we said before that they should connect to that by indirect way. So yeah. For the European powers, by the time they would like to prevent Egypt to get the benefits of the importance of the Red Sea, so they went all around Africa, okay, by what we call تاريخ رأس رجاء الصالح, that is to turn all around Africa instead of crossing the Red Sea. That is for not to give Egyptian authorities, not to give them the money and the taxes that they collect for that, okay. So as I said that by the digging Suez Canal, so lots of also importance increased for the Red Sea, but also lots of troubles, because the world powers at that time, especially after digging the Suez Canal, France and Britain, they would like to control Egypt, this in order to control the commerce in East African countries like India and China.
Yes. What about the digging of the new Suez Canal that increased the importance of this sea globally?
Yeah, the first idea to connect the two seas, okay, Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea directly, started by the Ferdinand de Lesseps, as a Frenchman that was very close to Said Pasha, who was the Caliph of Egypt. So he gave him that proposition, why not to dig a canal to connect between the two seas. Okay, so he gave him the approval to start for this work. So they started for that in 1859. That was the first time to dig for the Suez Canal.
Yeah. And it lasted for 10 years.
10 years from 1859 till 1869. So 10 years, okay, consecutively, okay, of hard work, and also by nearly 100,000 workmen from Egypt. So it was dug, or it was digging by Egyptian workmen that they worked at that time during 10 years of a very hard work to make that a great canal that gave a great grace for the whole world, that to make the direct road of commerce, to make it more rapidly and more quickly for that reason. So I think that was a great project for Egypt. And I think two days ago that appeared a book about the history of the Suez Canal. Okay, that's a very big volume, nearly 600 pages, and for me I have the honor to have a research on this, about the idea of the Suez Canal during the Islamic time, about the time of what we call it as the Gulf of Amir al-Mu'mineen, or of the Caliph at that time.
Yes, yes. What is the importance of the Red Sea area in the modern times?
Modern times, so I think surely that for Egypt it's very important, okay, that to make connection, okay, with the commercial centers on the Arabia, for Africa, and for lots of things. The Suez Canal also, it gave Egypt lots of benefits, and I think we have, especially with the digging of the second canal, so now I think for the crossing of the sea between the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, it became very easily now, okay, we have no waiting, so we have a canal for going, okay. Yes. It takes like 11 hours to go from the Red Sea till the Mediterranean Sea, or for the vice versa from Mediterranean Sea to that. Also, I think with the plan of Egypt to make lots of projects on Sinai, closer to the Suez Canal, to the Red Sea, and also for tourism, I think it's very important.
Yes, we'd like to shed light, of course, on the importance of this area, the Red Sea area, as a touristic destination in Egypt.
Yeah, sure. As a destination, I think it's one of the most important in the world, especially for diving. That is the best places of diving. We have that for surely Marsalam, we have of Safaga, we have Orgada. So these centers, they are very important. So lots of professional divers, they came from all around the world that in order to dive on the Red Sea, especially for the purity of the water of that sea, also for the amazing depth of the sea, with the corals, with the lots of
the coral reefs, yes.
Varieties of, also for the maritime creatures that they are in the Red Sea. It's amazing for that impression, for the sea itself. Also, it's closer also to Luxor, for example, and from Cairo. So the road from the Red Sea, from Hurghada, to go to Luxor, for example, it takes like 3 hours.
Yes.
So that is a daily trip. So the tourists and the visitors from these centers on the Red Sea, they can go to Luxor to see the historical temples there, Luxor temples, Valley of the Kings, Karnak, and all this in one day. So I think that is a great chance. Also, we have a daily trip, okay, from Hurghada, from Marsalam and these destination to Cairo also in one day to go and come back to see the pyramids. So that is very important also to encourage to have also more facilities for the roads and for the centers that for the rest houses
for the diving
on the road,
centers,
and
you mean?
for the diving and for all these things. So it's very important to benefit of the importance and the value of the Red Sea for different domains for Egypt, for Egyptian economy, for the income of Egypt. I think Red Sea, it is a grace of God for Egypt to give it more incomes and to make it more prosperous countries.
Yes, yes. How does the coral reefs in the Red Sea blocks or acts as an obstacle for navigation or affects the navigation itself?
I think it was in old time, but now we know where are the blocks and where the areas that is a little bit dangerous.
It's under
So,
control.
yeah, that's now under control. We don't hear about at these times, the modern times that we have now.
It doesn't affect the navigation anymore.
That was before, yes,
Yes.
because people at that time, they don't have the technology that we have now to explore what on the depths where the most important harbors and ports on the sea, at that time in ancient times. But now the technology, surely that we have very safe roads for the ports and for the boats that they come by the Red Sea. So we don't have these. It could be a problem, for example, by the pirates. Okay?
Yes.
Al-Qarsana or the pirates that they are, but it is on the south.
Pirates,
on the
yes.
south, the pirates that is on the south or closer to the area of Somalia and in this area. That is a little bit, but also it could be controlled. But I think for the corals, we don't have any problem for this. It is a great value for the Red Sea because it is urging and encouraging the people to go for diving to see the beauty of the corals on the heart of the Red Sea.
Yes. Concerning the history and the historical importance also, could you tell us any information about the armies that arrived in the Red Sea area? Armies,
yes,
or were there any battles
Yeah.
or wars in this area?
Surely that across the history because of the value, the economic
Yes.
and the strategic location of the Red Sea. So lots of countries, okay, that they would like to control the Red Sea. But Egypt, I think, was very strong across the history to control the Red Sea and also to prevent any outside intervention, especially with the European powers like Portugal, for example. Okay, Romans before the Portugal. Okay, but the Portugal after that with the some relation contact with some Ethiopian kings that they would like to control the Red Sea. But Egypt during the time of the Mamluk, they stopped them. Okay, lots of times. Also the Ottomans and sometimes also after the fall of the Mamluk times also they control a little bit at that time. But Egypt, across most of the historical times, Egypt controlled the Red Sea by its army, by its power at the time.
I thank you very much for your time and for your deep and marvelous information and good information. Thank you very much, Dr. Ismail Kamel, the historian and academic professor. I thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a short break. After this, I leave you with my colleague Nermeen Abdurrahman.